Delighted to be joined today by Yair Maimon, who is the president of the European Traditional Chinese Medicine Association. But more important than that, he's a clinician and a teacher and a researcher and a great figure who's led pioneering projects in national healthcare. And so I really wanted to give the BAcC community an opportunity to get to know Yair a little bit more. And we're going to be talking about the challenges and the promise of the future too. So just to get started, Yair, you've had quite a varied career. What would you say is the through line that you've had through your work that brings you today?
First of all, I owe a lot to England because I started my career here. And if I'll go into highlights, I started back in the 80s where there was a lot of pioneering work. Now we are at a different stage of it. So I've been observing all through the years, both through my personal life and my involvement with Chinese medicine, the unfolding of Chinese medicine in the West, its strengths and its weaknesses. And just to give some highlights about my career, so I always worked parallel to Chinese medicine in Western medicine, hospitals. So in the research path, I've started working in major hospitals in Israel, and I ran big research projects, both at the beginning with acupuncture and proving acupuncture is effective for knee pain, for example. And really, people didn't go to surgery, like we did a double-blind kind of randomized research. Then I moved to researching oncology, which is another story. And I published a lot of research about the effect of Chinese herbal medicine in oncology. And moved to another hospital that opened a big department with research department and also a treatment department, which is running until now, and it's very successful. And it shows the future of this medicine as far as integration. Because when I look at it over the years, I started in England, there was a bunch of hippies, everybody were but in a good way, everybody were very enthusiastic and full and just, came to this profession because of something in their path led them to this. Yeah. I always say Chinese medicine, you don't choose Chinese medicine chooses you. And I felt it very strongly, and I think everybody around me. So there was a very strong sense of vision, of doing something to better the world, to reduce suffering. So this is my path as far as a clinician, but also as a researcher, because I realized the only way to convince the West and the only way to be fully integrated is proving that what we do is valid. And luckily it is valid, and it's easy to prove. Then my career also took me through a path of education. So I created a school in Israel, which grew when we exchanged it to a government agent. It had 2,000 students, so it grew very much and had influence in Israel. And with research and other things, I helped implemented it into the healthcare in Israel. So now you can get on the NHS in Israel, and same is happening in England. But in Israel, it's everywhere. People can really get Chinese medicine as a almost first referral from doctors. And this is where it can go when there is a good integration, but also a lot of good personal connection. Because they're educated medical doctors. I had a special section in the university. So there was more than 700 doctors in Israel who studied Chinese medicine. So they were a good promoter into the system and a good interconnection. Then I can say one of the important things is, so it's one hand is education, research, and the ability to integrate so that Chinese medicine becomes a choice of medicine for the general public. So apart from research, I've done also a lot of political work. So I'm now the president of the ETCMA, which I think it's one of the important things about individuals is to join an association. It's this old story about one stick you can break. When you take a bunch of sticks, you can't. If you take it internationally, we become a strong power. Yeah. And this is how I'm trying to position and help to move Chinese medicine to the international scene. So I'm working closely with the WHO, and also we created the steering committee of the ETCMA, with our allies in America and Australia. So we do this kind of international three-continental work as far as understanding how we can protect our title and also decide how we want to be seen in the future. So that internationally we are starting to communicate well. That's kind of in a nutshell. I'm doing so much, and I'm a clinician. I see between 70 to 100 patients a week, all my life. So my hands-on and my inspiration is patients.
I think I resonate with so much of what you're saying, and I think it's interesting. You know, firstly, you've always had this instinct to think of where are things going, what are the opportunities, how can we expand those opportunities. And I think that it's something that is a big learning point for me, but I think for our whole community here in the BAcC, I think we're going through this phase. We're becoming aware that we have this incredible tradition that we want to perpetuate, continue into the future in the highest quality possible. But then we also have this external world that we have to work with too. And that external world has its own rules, sometimes nothing to do with tradition. It's just something that we have to learn and understand how to interact with and to extend out how these two things fit together. And so what's interesting to me is that you've had a foot firmly in both worlds, right? You've had a foot firmly in the traditional side as a practitioner and a clinician, a love of the medicine, and also in the external world, in the world of our associations, and then into the political sphere as well. So that's really fascinating for us. And so I guess where I'd like to find a bit more of your insight is addressing the issue that we have a responsibility to pass this medicine on and to create a foundation for the medicine to achieve the most of its promise into the future. What do you think are the main challenges that we face as a community, and how do you think we can rise to meet those?
I'll put two words.
Yeah.
I think it's easy to remember keywords and then understand the strategy and what you do around them. And it's to do with every individual practitioner, and it's to do with association and umbrella association like ETCMA. It's the same two words. It's trust and communication. I think one of our sometimes weaknesses is the trust in ourselves and in our medicine. You know, the pride that we take in our medicine can be easily shaken. And to me, I can stand out and shout, we have the best medicine in the world that understands how cells are created, that understands how the universe is working, how human positioned in the universe, and then understand disease and health in the deepest possible way. And also understands human challenge as humans on earth in the deepest possible way. So I think we are upholding, or we are on the path of incredible medicine, which is extremely effective. In my last research, I'm showing prevention of recurrence of cancer, showing and proving. So we have a very powerful medicine. But a lot of us, both as a community and individual, are shaky with our trust in the medicine. I'm lucky to do research. It helps me to trust more that what I do in the clinic, and anyway I see results, is good. The more we trust our medicine, the more we portray the trust outside. On every circle that we are meeting. Can be our patients, our friends, the political world, the health community, the decision makers. If we are coming with trust, then we are seen as something worthwhile. And our value is then understood. If we are apologetic, if we are not sure, this is how we are seen. So it's purely, first of all, about trust. And I always say it's up to the individual. You know, we have to create this inner trust and portray the trust outside. And over the more than 35 years of practicing Chinese medicine, every day I'm like student, you know, I'm like, every day is new to me in the clinic. And I walk every day probably as a lot of practitioners feeling, do I know anything? Do I know enough? How can I help? But when I meet patients and when I see the result and when I look at research Now I'm also compiling a book just about researching oncology acupuncture, more than 700-800 papers of high quality. There's much
Wow.
more. So when I look at the whole field and when I see the results in the clinic and when I see this medicine comparing it to other medicines, we are a very strong, unique system of medicine, and we are needed, especially in this time for human life. So this is the trust bit. The second bit is the communication. We have to communicate clearly, and the reason I created the steering committee and I call it One Voice, because we need to be more one voice. Bringing the message of our value, bringing the message of the importance of incorporating this medicine for health, for health choice for human, is an art. Today there is so much noise, so we have to be very clear in our communication, and we communicate to different stakeholders. That's how the Americans say it, in a very different. So it's a different communication to patients, different communication to the medical community, to researchers, to people who are making health decision makers, and we have to learn the skill. As practitioners, and you and me are the same, we are kind of grassroots. We grew from, we never learned, how to manage, and so we grew from our passion to the medicine, and from being clinician, but we have to learn skillfully how to communicate it. And to me, this is the important part for the future, that we have to fulfill better these two areas and understand how we can improve in our internal trust, in the way we portray the value and trust, and to communicate clear messages. The world today has changed in many ways, and we'll talk about losing the past because of this change, which is very unfortunate, and we have to preserve our past. We are standing on shoulders of giants, and some of them actually that are some of them written these books behind us. So it's not just ancient giants, but also some of them still living giants or important people who really help to convey the knowledge of Chinese medicine. But on the other hand, we need to learn that in the Western environment, there is clear messages that we need to to bring across. We need to stick to them, not to confuse too much. So I don't remember the question, but this was the answer.
No, that's great. I mean, I want to pick up on a few things about that. There's so many things. So trust is an interesting one. I think that it's been interesting that a lot of the focus of our community in the academic community has been, in some ways quite rightly, trying to prove that acupuncture works, that Chinese herbal medicine works, which is important to do. But it's funny that actually what often unlocks opportunities is actually demonstrating that we're trustworthy healthcare professionals. And that's what actually enables people to put us in situations like in hospitals and everything like that. So I think it was very interesting you highlighted that word. And what's been your experience with empowering practitioners to be trusted healthcare professionals and the opportunities that you've been able to achieve in your career with that?
I'll take the word empower. And again, it's a very personal, so I can say one of the things that took me years to achieve, so that's what I can deliver and give to others. And I said it in small before also, is that we will never feel comfortable. The nature of Chinese medicine is, I'll give you an example from biology. In biology, and it's a good way to explain Chinese medicine, to communicate. In biology, there is two kind of tiers. One tier is the molecular biology, where you want to prove how A is moving to B and to C, and you're trying to understand the whole pathway. And this is the Western world, And then in biology, the other tier is actually to do with system biology. how systems are affecting systems. We are much closer to system biology.
Yeah.
Now in system biology, things are less black and white because it's systems. We are moving, we are balancing the liver, and the liver suddenly feeds the heart, and suddenly the spleen gets better. And so we are moving in a very different dynamic when we are using Chinese medicine. And therefore we have to be aware that you will never feel comfortable. It's much more comfortable with the linear logic because we grew up with the linear logic. So in order to feel trust and in order to feel comfortable, we have to understand that we are from the beginning in a ground where there's less black and white, there is a lot of grays. And we have to feel comfortable with it.
It's very interesting. Last week, I went to a government meeting, the Westminster Health Forum, on the workforce crisis. We have this genuine crisis of the NHS workforce in the UK. And I was attending as the CEO of the British Acupuncture Council. And to begin with, I was feeling quite small in the presence of all these different people from different government agencies and things like that. And as I was observing the conversation, I realized that in many ways that everyone is feeling their way around this big thing we call health, and they're trying to find the solid approaches to actually meet the healthcare needs of the UK. So someone might be talking about research into, say, lifestyle change or something like that. And then it started to dawn on me that, no, actually, we're the experts in this conversation. We have the framework that Western medicine is at a crawl, starting to it's hitting all of the walls on the way, and slowly it's forming a picture, and that picture is the one that we already have, day one in your Chinese medicine course. And so I think that there is a way that we can reframe who we are, in the sense that we are the experts in understanding how human health fits together. And in a sense, we can see ourselves in a way as guiding our Western medicine colleagues along the path that they already seem to be heading down. Functional medicine is growing, individualized, personalized medicine is growing, as I say, emphasis on lifestyle and self-help, all of these things, mind, body, mindfulness, all of the directions that Western medicine is crawling towards. We're already there.
Exactly. And I think this is the exact messages we can and we should bring across. And I'll give an extreme example. I mean, after I felt comfortable with the head of the last hospital that I worked in, which is the biggest hospital in the Middle East. It's a huge one. So the guy feels that he is at least the prime minister. And I told him, look, I don't think we need you. You need us. Because what we bring to the health care system is something that you lost.
Yeah.
And especially because we bring back healing. Western medicine has been so much focused on disease and alleviating symptoms. And as you said, now they are coming back to understand that if you want to create a better and healthier community, you need to focus on health.
Yeah.
And this is where we are. We are focusing on health. We are focusing on complexity. So I'll give you a good example from cancer, which I always, when I talk to oncologists, I say that everybody understands that cancer is a complex disease. But Western medicine tries to treat it in a simple way. There's the bad guys, let's kill them. But we like complexity. We understand that there is the immune system, the cancer, the body, the person, all of them are working all the time. You can't just address the disease. And Western medicine has been failing in cancer for years.
Yeah.
All these years, they've been great in heart disease and other, but in cancer continue to fail.
Yeah.
Because you cannot focus on disease. When you focus on disease, you eventually, as I say, statistically you fail. You may have some wow, and I like Western medicine, I must say, and I admire Western medicine. And in the same way, I admire Chinese medicine. To me, they're not contradicting to each other. But in certain areas, Western medicine fails and puts a lot of efforts, and this is like a key point for communication. We are low cost effective medicine.
Yeah.
One cancer patient costs like almost to hold the whole village, you know, as far as costs. And Western medical cost is going to a place where they, you know, they can't afford it basically. And we are bringing in a healthy, preventative, important medicine.
It's a really interesting point because I think that when you, obviously there's a long tradition in Chinese medicine of focusing on disease as well, but the Chinese medicine has this rich conceptual framework. And because of that, it leads you to being able to diagnose and use treatment methods which wouldn't occur in another framework like conventional medicine, just because they lack the concepts and lack the approaches, not because it's a different form of thinking or something. So just to an example, you know, you talk about oncology, all the focus is on the cancer, right, in conventional treatment, which is fine. But we can see someone who's saying going through chemo or radio who's got all these heat symptoms, right, or inflammatory symptoms, and we can just say, well, that's heat. In our conceptual framework, we can do something to help the body deal with that heat and discharge it and release it and support the strength of the person underneath. Now, heat is not a concept which is controversial. Heat is something that is understood in every context. Yet in conventional medicine, those conceptual categories aren't there for them to work with, you know, and Chinese medicine's filling in that gap. Because it has, I would say, in many ways, a richer conceptual framework, which allows you to make better decisions for your patients. And coming back, and I think it'd be nice to pivot to communication, because that's your second one. These things often aren't communicated. They don't land with our conventional medical colleagues for all sorts of different reasons. Chinese medicine is so vast. It's the medicine of a culture, you know, and we can get distracted by all of the different wonderful aspects of it and all the terminology and all of the things that really bring us alive. But sometimes we then lose how we actually talk to each other and engage with patients on an everyday basis. And I think it's a really interesting opportunity to turn that out, communicate that to the conventional medical world.
I'll give like take on this, like two other aspects, you know, children and aging population. This is like, I started in Israel a center for treating children, even brought my friend Julian Scott. So we had almost like 1,000 children a month treated in our clinic for a while, and for years actually. And again, in children, it's the same. You see how Western medicine is totally inadequate, let's say, to treat recurrent ear infections or general infections, because we know that if you strengthen the spleen qi, the lung qi, you know, you help to eliminate the phlegm, the children are just doing amazingly well. You know, they will never, like, I have 3 children, they never took antibiotics. And the pediatrician, that the first time that I told him I'm doing Chinese medicine, start to order things on the table, you know, kind of, he was fidgeting around, you know, Chinese medicine. Eventually became a student of mine, actually finished the #1. He didn't practice Chinese medicine, but he became a really admirer of the medicine. So in children, you know, preventing disease in children, we are growing healthier adults. So our ability to impact the future is tremendous. These children are bombarded with immunization, with antibiotics, and eventually they will have more autoimmune disease. They will have other diseases, which are stemming from wrong taking care as children.
Yeah.
The same with aging. And you mentioned the very key word, and I'm in cancer, I'm also, in my research, we are focusing on it. It's inflammatory conditions. A lot of the aging conditions are to do with inflammation.
Interesting.
We are now showing in research, both in acupuncture and herbal medicine, we are reducing inflammatory factors, and they can be measured even a year after the treatment. after the acupuncture treatments, between one group to another. So there is a lot of proof, and the proof is now because of, I think, a lot of advance in science. The proof is now much more stunning because we can go into biomarkers, we can go into to look at the brain, into functional MRIs, and we can see that the effect of acupuncture is not just incredible and unexpected, but also curative. It's long-lasting. And the idea of holding a medicine which is curative medicine, not palliative medicine, is our responsibility. As I say, it's really our responsibility to change the world to a better. And when we are coming with this vision, it's very difficult to stop us. So the third thing I would say after trust and communication is having a clear vision, where we want to head and why we want to do it. And the more our vision is growing and the more we can see human, and not just human, see life. Because the world is going into a very strange, unhealthy direction of creating imbalance. We are all aware of it. We are harnessing the medicine of understanding balance. And so everywhere that we see things are going out of balance and against life, we can help with our doing, with our mind, with our understanding how to help to balance them better. That's why I think our voice is crucial for the future of humanity, not just for our own small sake or the way we practice our medicine.
So I think sometimes, you're absolutely right, sometimes we think too small, we're inward focusing, and we don't realize the vast significance of what we are engaging with and holding on to. So maybe we can finish with a final question, because I think this is something we both care about and drives us a lot. We have now multiple generations of practitioners in the West, and some of the really great figures that have pioneered the medicine are starting to actually move out of the profession. And there's a great challenge of how we continue, how we sustain this into the future. So there'll be people listening to this video who are members at all different stages, all the way from students, new practitioners, all the way to longer standing members. How do you think that we can meet this generational challenge of preserving the great contributions and achievements of the past and passing that down through the generations?
There's different way to look at this question. I think it's large, it's multi-layered, and it involves one of the secrets of human life, because it's past, present, and future. And I think, to me, heaven, man, earth is one of the way to look at something and see how it unfolds always into three. There's never one in Chinese medicine. So when we want to look at something, we need this threefold view. So the past is something that we are standing on. And obviously it's the people in the community who have more experience, who have more knowledge, and they can help and pass and nurture other people. So this is like the past. The present is the people who are here now. And to me, it doesn't matter how senior or junior you are. It's all to do with leadership. Is how much you are willing to do outside of your comfort zone and help to lead. And it can be anything. Leadership doesn't mean, to lead crowds. It just means a mindset that you want to create a change, that you want to lead other people to this change. It can be your family, your friends, your patients, your community. And so this is, to me, the present. And the future is where we want to lead it to. And I think once we have this overall picture, we do understand challenges and weakness. We see that our community is aging. And this is our responsibility to understand how we can preserve it and how we can bring back the passion and the urgency and to make the future of our medicine as bright as possible. Not for our sake, as I say, for the sake of humanity.
Well, thank you, Yair. It's been really brilliant conversation, and you are an inspiring leader as well
thank
to
you.
many, including myself.
Same.
So,
I would say the same about you.
so just to round things off, just like to point out that we're actually developing our lineup for the BAcC and RCHM conference for next year, and you'll see some of these themes reflected in there, very much with an emphasis on how we facilitate that intergenerational communication, because one of the key features of Chinese medicine and Chinese culture is a veneration of our elders and the wisdom that's brought, and passing that tradition down. So that will be highlighted there. But thank you very much to Yair for this conversation, and watch out for future Cultivating Tradition videos coming up.
Thank you, Alex, for hosting and for your time. Thank you
Pleasure.
very much.